What if the death of a family member didn't just leave you with grief, but with secrets so dark they could destroy everything you thought you knew about yourself? What if you discovered that the person who loved you most had built that love on the most unforgivable lie imaginable? Ellen DeGeneres was about to witness exactly that kind of revelation, because sometimes the most devastating inheritances aren't the ones that make you rich, they're the ones that make you question who you really are. The studio lights gleamed as cameras rolled on what seemed like another heartwarming episode. The audience was settled, Ellen was smiling, and her guest appeared composed and ready to share what everyone expected would be an inspiring story about moving forward after loss. But buried in a simple manila envelope that her guest clutched nervously in her lap were documents that would shatter not just one person's world, but challenge everyone watching to consider how well they really knew their own families. I thought I was coming here to talk about starting over after my grandmother's death, her guest would soon say, her voice beginning to tremble. But I need to tell you what I found in her house, because I don't know who I am anymore. And in that moment, Ellen would realize that some stories don't have happy endings, they have truth endings. And sometimes the truth is far more devastating than any fiction could ever be. Ellen DeGeneres had interviewed thousands of guests over her decades-long career, from celebrities sharing personal triumphs to everyday heroes overcoming extraordinary challenges, but nothing could have prepared her for the afternoon, when what seemed like a routine conversation about moving forward after loss would evolve into one of the most emotionally shattering revelations in television history. What started as a story about healing from grief became an unflinching examination of family secrets, hidden identities, and the devastating power of truth to completely rewrite someone's understanding of their own life. It was a quiet Wednesday afternoon at the Ellen Studios, and the atmosphere was gentle and contemplative as they prepared for what was scheduled to be a thoughtful episode about processing grief and finding purpose after significant loss. Ellen, wearing a soft lavender blazer over charcoal pants, was looking forward to interviewing Sarah Williams, a 32-year-old woman from Denver, whose story of rebuilding her life after her grandmother's recent death had been shared in a local newspaper and caught the attention of Ellen's production team. Sarah's story, as initially presented, was exactly the kind of hopeful narrative that Ellen loved to feature, someone who had transformed a period of profound loss into an opportunity for positive change and community service. According to her initial interview materials, Sarah had been devastated by the death of her beloved grandmother Rose Williams, who had raised her after her parents died in a car accident when Sarah was 6 years old. After Rose's death 3 months earlier, Sarah had started a support group for other adults dealing with the loss of elderly family members, and had begun volunteering at a local senior center in her grandmother's memory. Our next guest lost the woman who raised her just 3 months ago, Ellen announced to the attentive studio audience. But instead of letting grief consume her, she's channeled her love for her grandmother into helping others who are facing similar losses. Her story reminds us that sometimes our greatest pain can become the source of our most meaningful purpose. Please welcome Sarah Williams. The audience offered warm, supportive applause as Sarah walked onto the stage with measured steps and a somewhat hesitant smile. She was a woman of average height with auburn hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing a navy blue dress that suggested someone who had dressed carefully for this important occasion. What struck Ellen most was the intensity in Sarah's eyes, not the typical nervousness of someone meeting a celebrity, but something deeper and more troubled. Sarah carried with her a small manila envelope, which she clutched tightly as she approached Ellen for their customary embrace. Ellen noticed that Sarah's hands were trembling slightly, and her grip on the envelope never loosened. "Sarah, welcome to the show," Ellen said warmly as they both settled into their chairs. "Thank you for having me, Ellen. I'm not sure how this is going to go," Sarah replied, her voice carrying an uncertainty that Ellen found intriguing. "Tell us about your grandmother. She obviously meant a great deal to you." Sarah's expression softened with genuine love and pain. "Rose Williams was everything to me. After my parents died, she didn't just take me in. She rebuilt her entire life around giving me the best childhood she could. She was my mother, my father, my best friend, my biggest supporter." That sounds like an incredible relationship, Ellen said with sincere empathy. It was. For 26 years, she was the center of my world. When she died in February, I felt completely lost. She was 89 and had been declining for months, so I thought I was prepared, but nothing really prepares you for that kind of loss. Ellen nodded with understanding. Grief is never something we can fully prepare for, no matter how much warning we have. How did you begin to heal? Sarah's grip on the envelope tightened as she considered the question. Well, that's actually why I'm here, Ellen. The healing process, it's been more complicated than I expected. What do you mean? Sarah looked down at the envelope in her lap, then back at Ellen with an expression that seemed to carry the weight of some terrible knowledge. Ellen, I need to tell you something that I haven't shared with anyone else. Something I discovered while going through my grandmother's belongings that has completely changed everything I thought I knew about my life. Ellen felt a familiar chill of alertness that came when an interview was about to take an unexpected turn. Sarah, whatever it is, you can share it here if you feel comfortable. Sarah's breathing became shallow as she stared at the envelope. 3 weeks after Rose's funeral, I was cleaning out her house, going through decades of accumulated belongings, trying to decide what to keep and what to donate. It was heartbreaking, but also healing, you know? I felt close to her, surrounded by all the things that had made up her life. That sounds like it would be both difficult and meaningful. It was until I found something that wasn't supposed to exist. Sarah's voice began to tremble. Hidden in the back of her bedroom closet, behind Christmas decorations that hadn't been used in years, I found a locked metal box. Ellen leaned forward slightly, sensing that Sarah was approaching something significant. What was in the box? Sarah held up the manila envelope with shaking hands. Ellen, inside that box were documents that have destroyed everything I thought I knew about who I am, where I came from, and what my life has been built on. Sarah, what kind of documents? Birth certificates, adoption papers, court records, police reports. Sarah's voice was getting stronger but also more pained with each word. Ellen, I discovered that everything my grandmother told me about my parents, about my childhood, about my identity, it was all lies. The studio fell completely silent as the audience absorbed the gravity of what Sarah was sharing. Ellen felt her heart rate increase as she realized they were entering territory far more complex than a simple grief story. Sarah, what did you discover? Sarah opened the envelope with trembling hands and pulled out several official-looking documents. Ellen, I was not raised by my grandmother after my parents died in a car accident. My parents are alive. They gave me up for adoption when I was 6 years old, and Rose Williams illegally took me and moved across the country. Ellen felt the blood drain from her face as she processed what Sarah was saying. Sarah, are you telling me that your grandmother kidnapped you? I don't know what else to call it, Sarah said, tears beginning to stream down her face. According to these documents, my birth name isn't Sarah Williams, it's Sarah Chen. My biological parents reported me missing in 1998. There was a nationwide search. My face was on milk cartons. Ellen looked at the documents Sarah was holding, noting the official seals and legal letterhead that suggested their authenticity. Sarah, have you verified these documents? I've spent the last month working with a private investigator and a lawyer, Sarah replied. Ellen, everything in this box is real. Rose Williams, the woman I loved more than anyone in the world, stole me from my biological family and spent 26 years making me believe they were dead. Ellen felt overwhelmed by the implications of what Sarah was revealing. Sarah, what do you know about your biological family? Sarah pulled out a photograph from the envelope, a family portrait showing 2 Asian adults and a young girl who was unmistakably Sarah at age 6. My real parents are David and Linda Chen. They live in California. They never stopped looking for me. Ellen studied the photograph, seeing the clear resemblance between the child in the picture and the woman sitting beside her. Sarah, have you contacted them? Not yet, Sarah said, her voice breaking completely. Ellen, I don't know how to process this. The woman who raised me, who I thought was a saint, who sacrificed everything to give me a good life, She was a criminal. She stole me from parents who loved me and have been mourning me for 26 years. Ellen felt tears forming in her own eyes as she witnessed Sarah's anguish. Sarah, this must be incredibly overwhelming. Ellen, I don't know who I am anymore, Sarah sobbed. My entire identity was built on a lie. My name is wrong. My family history is wrong. My understanding of my childhood is wrong. I've been grieving for a woman who destroyed my biological family's lives. Ellen reached out and took Sarah's hand. Sarah, I can't imagine how devastating this discovery must be. Have you learned anything about why Rose took you? Sarah wiped her eyes and pulled out another document. According to the police reports and court records, Rose Williams lost her own daughter, my adoptive mother who she claimed was my biological mother, in a drowning accident in 1997. She became obsessed with the idea of having another child to replace the one she lost. And she chose you? The document suggests she had been watching my family, learning our routines. My biological parents were going through a difficult divorce, and I was staying with a babysitter more often. One day, Rose simply took me from a playground and disappeared. Ellen felt sick as she processed the calculated nature of what had happened to Sarah. Sarah, what was your childhood like with Rose? Do you have any memories that make sense now, in light of this information? Sarah considered the question carefully. Now that I know the truth, I can see things differently. Rose was always paranoid about official documents, avoided cameras, never wanted me to participate in school activities that might attract attention. She homeschooled me until high school and always said it was because public schools weren't good enough. Do you think she was hiding? I think she was terrified of being caught, Sarah replied. Ellen, there are newspaper clippings in the box about the search for me. Rose kept every article about my disappearance. She knew exactly what she had done and what my real family was going through. Ellen felt anger rising as she thought about the cruelty of Rose's actions. Sarah, how are you processing your feelings about Rose now that you know the truth? Sarah's expression became complex, showing the internal struggle she was experiencing. Ellen, this is the hardest part. I still love her, despite what she did, despite the lies, despite the fact that she stole me from my real family. She was a loving, devoted caregiver for 26 years. She sacrificed her health, her finances, her social life to raise me. But she built that love on a foundation of unimaginable cruelty to your biological family. Exactly, Sarah said, her voice filled with anguish. How do I reconcile those two realities? How do I honor the love she gave me while acknowledging the devastating crime she committed? Ellen turned to address the audience and cameras. Folks, what Sarah is sharing with us today raises questions that I don't think any of us can easily answer. When someone you love has done something unforgivable, how do you process those conflicting emotions? She looked back at Sarah. Sarah, what do you think you need to do now? I need to contact my biological family, Sarah said with determination through her tears. David and Linda Chen, my real parents, they deserve to know that I'm alive, that I'm okay, that I never forgot them even though I didn't remember them. Are you afraid of that contact? Terrified, Sarah admitted. Ellen, I'm 32 years old. They lost a 6-year-old daughter. I don't know if they'll even want to see me, or if my presence will just reopen old wounds. Ellen felt the weight of Sarah's situation settling over her. Sarah, what would you want to say to your biological parents if they're watching right now? Sarah looked directly into the camera, her voice steady despite her tears. David and Linda Chen, if you're watching this, I want you to know that your daughter Sarah is alive. I want you to know that not a day has gone by that I haven't felt like something was missing from my life. And now I understand what that was. I want you to know that I'm sorry for the pain you've endured, and that if you're willing, I would love the chance to get to know you again. Ellen wiped tears from her own eyes as she witnessed this unprecedented moment of television. Sarah, I want to help you make that connection. With your permission, I'd like to have our production team reach out to the Chen family. Sarah nodded eagerly. Please, I need to try to repair what Rose broke, even if it's 26 years too late. Ellen made arrangements on the spot to have her team contact the Chen family and coordinate a potential reunion. 3 weeks later, Both Sarah and her biological parents appeared on Ellen's show for one of the most emotional reunions in television history. How did it feel to hear from Sarah after all these years? Ellen asked David and Linda Chen during the follow-up episode. Like getting our daughter back from the dead, Linda replied, holding Sarah's hand tightly. We never stopped hoping, never stopped believing she was out there somewhere. And Sarah, how has it been getting to know your biological family? It's been like remembering a dream, Sarah said. Pieces of my early childhood that I thought I had imagined are actually real memories of time with my biological parents. Ellen addressed the complex emotional landscape they were all navigating. How do you all feel about Rose Williams now? David Chen spoke with remarkable grace. We don't forgive what she did. She stole 26 years of our daughter's life from us, but we're grateful that she loved Sarah and gave her a good life. That's the only thing that makes this bearable. The episode became a landmark moment for discussions about kidnapping, family identity, and the complex nature of love built on deception. It also led to renewed attention to cold cases involving missing children and the importance of never giving up hope. What Sarah taught us, Ellen reflected months later, is that sometimes the most devastating discoveries can also be the most liberating. Learning the truth about her past was agonizing, but it also gave her the chance to reclaim her real identity and reunite with the family who never stopped loving her. Because sometimes the most painful inheritances are the ones that reveal the truth, and sometimes discovering that your life was built on lies is the first step toward building it on something real.